Welcome to Chai with Pi. I've been fascinated by Mount Everest. At 29,000 feet, Mount Everest is clearly the ultimate symbol of challenge for mankind. And there are so many stories of what's happened as people have tried to climb there, right from the time Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing Norgay actually did it the first time. Something interesting I read in the papers recently. 2019 was a very busy year for Mount Everest. It had more people attempting to climb Mount Everest. It also had the largest number of casualties that any year has ever seen. But as I read the story, something interesting emerged. 80% of the people who died trying to scale Mount Everest actually died on the way down. They had climbed Mount Everest. They had got to the world's tallest mountain peak. And then as they were coming down, they lost their lives. So clearly, getting to the top of Mount Everest is not really the toughest thing about conquering the world's tallest mountain peak. Getting back to base camp is equally important. I've sometimes wondered what makes the difference. Is it possible that the euphoria of getting to the top of Mount Everest makes people drop their guard, makes them get a little careless perhaps, and that results in them slipping on the way back? Whatever it is, I think it's important to recognize that it's not just about getting to the top, it's not just about surviving the crisis, it's about coming out of it alive. That makes a difference. And as I look around and I see the lockdown and what's been happening, you'll find there's lots and lots of advice on how leaders should communicate, we should engage employees, we should control cash burn, we should cut cost. We're all looking at what should we do during the lockdown, during this phase of no activity. We're not asking the question, what will we do once the lockdown lifts? I dare say that 2 years from now, we won't be hailing those companies and saying, wow, they did such a good job of surviving the lockdown. We'll be looking at what did they do after the lockdown, which has allowed them to thrive. So I think for leaders, for businesses, indeed for all of us, it's a good idea to ask yourself the question, how am I going to live my life differently once the lockdown lifts? How am I going to readjust to the reality of a new world? Because that's what will determine what success really looks like. If you think back to America's space program, you'll probably recall John F. Kennedy inspiring an entire nation with those famous words. He said, America will send a man to the moon and bring him back alive. He didn't just say we'll send him to the moon, he talked about bringing him back alive. And I think that makes a huge difference. As any sports person will tell you, it isn't over till it's over. If you wish you'd win a lottery ticket, you might want to remember that more than 95% of the people who won a lottery ticket died broke. So it's not enough to win the lottery, it's what you do with the money that matters. So it's important for all of us to make sure that when we dream big, when we think of our goals, we don't only think of getting there, but also what happens after that. Make sure that if you're trying to climb Mount Everest, come back safe to base camp. If you're putting a man on the moon, make sure you bring him back alive. True for all of those, true for our goals too. Until next time, enjoy your chai.